Hi everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Ashley Thomas. I'm the dietitian behind Cook With Me TV, and you're watching another healthy and delicious meal in the making. Tonight what I'm doing is I'm showing you how to use up the leftovers that you might have accrued from over the week. I've been there, I know what it's like to have all of those leftovers pile up in the fridge, and the more they pile up, the less you want to deal with them until finally you just throw your hands up because you've had enough, because you can't put anything else into the fridge. And then you have to clean everything out, which is not a fun thing to do. We always find some interesting things growing on those leftovers, don't we? Let's be real, it happens to all of us. So I'm here to show you one way that you can use up extra vegetables or grains or proteins. And one way to do this is a very simple stew. So we're gonna throw all of our leftovers into a big pot of stew, and it's gonna be super quick, super simple, and very nutritious for us. As I mentioned, if you tuned in earlier this week, which I think most of you did, we made lots of things using barley. So we started out with the barley risotto, which we then turned into barley cakes last night. And then tonight we're just gonna throw it into a stew. So I've got about a cup left over here of the barley, and then I've actually got quite a bit of kale left over. I wanted to make sure we had enough, so I told someone not to eat much of it during the week. And we're also gonna use sausage tonight, which I know is probably a big surprise for most of you on the show because I, for one, don't usually cook with a whole lot of meat, and for sausage to be the meat of choice tonight is probably surprising for you all. But I do love sausage. It's not something that I eat a ton of, and it's not the healthiest protein, it's not the leanest of proteins, but it is delicious and it adds lots of flavor to dishes. So, you know, having it in moderation is completely fine. So we're gonna just use 2 of these guys. We're gonna chop them up, saute them before we get all of the stew going. And I just wanna give a quick shout out to Wishbone Farms for their sausage. It's, I believe, a new product of theirs that they're trying to kind of get out there. They are a local company in Charleston, by the way. So unfortunately, I think those of you who are on right now don't have access to Wishbone Farms, but that's okay. Just to give you a few little tips for what to look for when you are looking at a sausage is to look at the ingredients list for one and make sure that the actual meat is listed first in the list of ingredients. So for example, the ingredients here, pork, and they put from Wishbone Heritage Farms, sea salt, fennel, basil, black pepper, garlic, oregano. So it's just spices and meat. A lot of the sausage that you buy at the grocery store these days is packed with a bunch of other things, additives, preservatives, fillers, things that are not actual whole foods. So just be careful of that when you are buying sausage at the grocery store, and look at your ingredients list and just make sure that it's got, you know, meat and then maybe some spices, maybe some other vegetables or fruits sometimes thrown in there. This one, because it is a local small company, they don't have the nutrition label on it, but I will say sausage is typically high in sodium, so look for a sausage that has about 300 milligrams or less of sodium. So let's go ahead and get this started. What we're gonna do first is saute up some aromatics. So we're gonna start with a shallot. You could also just use a regular onion. A shallot has a little bit more mild of a flavor. And then some garlic, of course. So you're gonna wanna get a stock pot or a big soup pot, just to make sure you've got enough room for everything that we're gonna throw into the pot here. And we are gonna saute these things in a little bit of olive oil to start building some flavor. So before I go any further with this, I'm gonna go ahead and drizzle a little bit of olive oil in my pan, turn the heat on so we can get it nice and warm. So if you are cooking with me, go ahead and get your pan started. Put about half of a tablespoon of olive oil here in the bottom. You know, I think in America today, meat is typically the center of our plate, and we've kind of grown up that way, and the vegetables and then the other sides are a second thought, whereas we need to really try to kind of shift our perspective into looking at vegetables and whole grains and other lean proteins like beans as the center of the plate rather than meat. And use meat as just a little bit of, use it for flavor enhancement, use it for seasoning. we'll get the garlic going in here too. Hey Lindsay, thanks for tuning in. Oh yes, Bev was asking about how would you make it Italian sausage, which actually, Mom, that's what we have here. Sweet Italian sausage. There's no sugar added. I think the sweet comes from the fennel flavor. And yes, Janice said add Italian seasonings, which is a good idea. If you wanted to mimic this Italian sausage, again, the spices in here are fennel, which is probably whole fennel. So you would buy fennel from the grocery store and saute it down and then cook your sausage with that. Basil, black pepper, garlic, and oregano. All the spices I know you have in your spice cabinet, because I have them too. I'm gonna give this a quick mix here. And let's go ahead and we'll chop up these cloves of garlic here. We'll get those in the pan. And garlic cooks up in no time, and you want to be careful not to burn it. So I'm only going to cook it for about a minute, and then we'll go ahead and add our sausage in here. You have to be a little careful when you're cutting the raw sausage because some of it will come out of the casing. I just like to sear each side of the sausage. Increasing the surface area of the sausage in general is going to help develop a little bit more flavor. So sausage is considered a processed meat, and as I mentioned, it's not the healthiest protein, it's not the leanest of proteins, but it does pack a lot of flavor, and it's just nice to have every once in a while. There are other foods that fall into the processed meat category, like cold cuts, so like the processed sandwich meats that you get at a deli. Bacon is also one. But again, every now and then, as a flavor enhancer and just to kind of have a nice comforting meal is totally okay. So we're gonna go ahead and throw these into the pan as well. And just kind of give them a nice sear. Get some browning going. So you can see we are getting some browning of the onions on the bottom of the pan, and that's okay because we're going to pour some stock in and we'll scrape up all those bits off the bottom. It's a process that's called deglazing, and all of those crispy bits on the bottom pack a lot of flavor as well. So getting up all those crispy bits is going to add some nice flavor to our stew. You could also use a white wine or any kind of wine to deglaze the bottom of your pan, or to cut your sodium, you could just use water. Reese! Hi, Reese! Welcome back to the show. So good to see you on. So I'm going to show you the broth that I'm using. If you did not tune in on Monday, then I wanted to show you the broth because this is the same broth that I used on Monday. So this is a bone broth. Pacific is a pretty mainstream brand, so most of you will probably be able to find this in your grocery store. We used to have a local bone broth company here, but I don't believe that they're in business anymore, unfortunately, because the broth was very, very delicious and so nutritious for you. Bone broth does have, a few more vitamins and minerals and collagen peptides in it, which are good for hair, skin, nails, all of that good stuff. So it's a little bit more nutritious than just straight chicken broth or veggie broth. So that's why I'm using it tonight. Don't always use it. You don't always have to use it. You could just use a plain old veggie stock or chicken stock that you have at home. So for those of you that are just tuning in, we're using up our leftovers tonight. We did a bunch of barley throughout the week. We've had a bunch of kale as well that we're going to throw into this stew. And so we're just introducing a nice flavor from the sausage here into our stew. And I'm just trying to sear each side before I get my broth going. If you didn't want to use sausage in this, you wouldn't have to. You could use any other kind of protein that you have left over. You could use chicken, you could use pork, you could even use a fish. You could do like a poached fish kind of thing. All right, and I'm gonna spice this up a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit of red chili flake in mine. You don't have to. But we like a little spice around here. Okay, so now we're gonna turn the heat up. We're gonna pour our stock in. And we'll bring it to a simmer before we add the last 3 ingredients. This is more of a winter meal, but I just recently met one of the farmers from Wishbone Heritage Farms, and they were talking about their sausage, and I was like, oh, I have to figure out how to work that in somewhere. So that's what we're doing. I also get my eggs from Wishbone Heritage Farms as well. All right, so I'm just kind of scraping up the brown bits from the bottom of the pan here. And we'll bring this to a simmer before we put our beans, kale, and barley in. So let's go ahead and put a lid on this. And we can go ahead and open up our beans. I'm using cannellini beans. They are my favorite white bean because they are creamy and delicious. Just like any other bean out there, it's going to be very rich in soluble fiber, which helps to do so many things. Helps to regulate our blood sugars. So if you're somebody that has prediabetes or diabetes, or maybe you have mood swings from irregular blood sugars, getting some beans in several times a week can help with that. Of course, other foods that are rich in fiber will also help with that, like your vegetables and your fruits and your whole grains, like your barley that we're throwing in here. But soluble fiber also helps to naturally lower cholesterol in the body. Food is medicine. You hear me talk about that a lot on the show, and it's so true with beans and soluble fiber. It actually prevents the body from absorbing excess cholesterol in the small intestine by binding with excess cholesterol, preventing its absorption, and then it's excreted out of the body. So isn't that crazy? It's just so interesting and fascinating to me how nutrition works in the body and how powerful food is and can impact our health. So we're going to use 1 can of beans in here. And if you're wondering about, is the sausage going to increase my cholesterol? Is it bad for me to eat it? It is going to be higher in saturated fat than most cuts of meat. However, as I mentioned, the beans that we have with this meal can theoretically help prevent the absorption of that excess cholesterol that might be developing when you eat sausage. Now, if you're someone who eats sausage, every now and then, it's not a reason for concern. But if you're someone who is eating, breakfast sausage on the regular in the morning, bratwursts a lot on the grill, then you might want to scale back on those processed meats and sausages and include a little bit more fiber in your diet. Okay, so let's go ahead and drain these. Lima beans, yes, lima beans do have soluble fiber, absolutely. I know, I'm sure plenty of people are happy to hear about that. And so we're gonna drain and rinse these guys to get off any excess sodium. So we've got that, we have our leftover barley here, and then we've got our kale. We have a ton of kale. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball to see how much we're gonna put in there. The recipe calls for 1.5 cups. This is definitely more than 1.5 cups. But as we like to say, with cooking, you can throw in as many vegetables as you want with things. It's a great way to eat more vegetables, and especially in a soup. Not quite there yet, but that's okay because these ingredients are, you know, cold, so we're gonna need to heat them up anyway. So we're just gonna go ahead and throw all of this stuff in here. Barley, again, great source of soluble fiber, B vitamins, some protein in there too. Better for your blood sugars than something like a white rice. Beans, of course. Wait with the kale because it's a nice green color right now. The longer we cook it, the less green it's going to get. You've probably seen that with overcooked broccoli or other overcooked greens. So we're gonna wait to add this at the last minute because it's gonna take no time to heat up. Waiting for this soup to come to a little simmer here. Oh, it's starting. You could also use, if you were making this soup from scratch and you weren't using it as a leftover soup, you know, you could use any other kind of green in this. You could do a chard, a turnip green, a mustard green. Those will cook up pretty quickly, so add them maybe towards the end of cooking if you're leaving the stalk off. With a lot of greens, the stalk is going to be a little bit more hearty, it's going to be chewier, it's going to need a little bit more cooking time. So what I usually recommend is to strip the leaf off of the stalk, chop up the stalk, and throw it in with your onions and garlic. So throw it in that early in the cooking process to help break it down. And then so by the time you're ready to add the greens, everything is cooked and the greens are just the last thing that need to be cooked. All right, come up to a boil. Just perfect. So we're really just heating everything through. We'll go ahead and throw this kale in. We'll start with the 1.5 cups. I'm gonna eyeball it like I do. Say that's about 1.5 there. Oh, this looks so good. I know it's summer and it's so hot outside, but y'all see that? It's beautiful. I think that's plenty of kale. I'm gonna leave that. So again, a very simple leftover stew. If you have any kind of protein left over, whether it's chicken, pork, beef, you could use it in this. Use up your leftover grains and your vegetables and just put it together with a very simple, pre-made stock is fine. You don't have to make it from scratch. And you can see, we can let this sit for a little bit longer if we want to, but it's 7:26 right now. So it took less than 30 minutes to throw all of this together. Probably fogging you up there. Look at that. Beautiful. You could add some fresh herbs on there if you wanted to. There you have it. Let's get a little. Look at that. Sausage, white beans, kale, barley, all the good things. It smells so good. I'm not gonna try it tonight in front of you because it's piping hot and I'm not gonna have you hang around here for 10 minutes just to let it cool down so you can see my reaction. I'll take a picture of my reaction and post it on Facebook if you're interested. Thank you so much everyone for tuning in. Come back tomorrow night. We have Jennifer on at 6 p.m. and then we also have Olivia, who is for sure coming back this week. She's going to do what she was going to do last week, her chopino, which is a seafood stew. So I hope you guys come back tomorrow and plan to cook with us. Grab the recipe on our website, print it out, or keep it on your phone, however you like to do it, and then tune into the show and cook along with the dietitian that's cooking tomorrow. So thank you again. Please share this video so we can reach more people and help more people cook healthy meals at home. And I will see you next week. Have a great weekend.